The Plains region. The middle of North America is a huge plain. It stretches between the Rocky Mountains in the west and the Mississippi River. Rolling hills form its edges, but the center is flat. As a Comanche Indian once said of this land, there is nothing to break the light of the sun. Today, the plains are rich farmland. Long ago, however, this whole region was covered with wild grass. In the northeastern area, called the prairie, the grass grew taller than an adult man. In the center, where the land is flat, the grass was short. There were more than 60 million buffalo once roamed. People of the plains. Until the 1500s, people lived mainly on the edges of the plains or along rivers. In the far west, for example, were the Blackfoot. In the northeast, tribes such as the Mandan had villages. They raised crops from fall through spring. In summer, they roamed the plains in search of buffalo. Europeans changed all this. The Spanish brought horses to North America in the 1500s. The British brought guns in war. The British pushed Indians from other areas across the Mississippi River and onto the plains. Once tribes such as the Sioux captured horses, they gave up farming. They became full-time nomadic hunters. The buffalo. These new nomadic tribes built their way of life around the buffalo. They ate buffalo meat, either boiled, broiled, or raw. They made buffalo blood into a pudding. They pounded dry buffalo meat together with fat and wild cherries. This was pemmican, a food that did not easily spoil. It could be eaten months after it was made. A single buffalo herd could have 500,000 animals. Teepee skins made of buffalo hides could last as long as 25 years. The buffalo was used for much more than food. The Plains Indians made saddles, tents, and clothing from its skin. They made cups and spoons from its horns. They made toys and tools out of its bones. Its stomach became a bag. Every part of the buffalo was used for something. The Plains Indians even used buffalo dung as fuel for their fire. Living on the move. Buffalo were always on the move, so the hunters had to move too. Before the 1500s, this was hard for the Indians. They had only dogs to drag their goods. They couldn't carry much, and getting close to buffalo on foot was hard. They hunted buffalo mostly by herding them over cliffs. Before they had horses, the Plains Indians hunted buffalo on foot. Horses became so important to the Plains Indians that most children learned to ride by the age of 5. On horseback, however, hunters could charge close to the buffalo. A band of families could follow a herd. Horses carried everything the Indians needed for a rich, full life. The Plains Indians spent much time catching, buying, or stealing horses because their way of life depended on this animal. Earth Lodge and Teepee. Part-time farmers such as the Mandan and Pawnee lived in a type of house called an earth lodge. An earth lodge was partly underground. It was usually round and had a dome-shaped roof made of clay and grass. The roof was strong enough for a person to stand on. A Mandan village might have about 60 earth lodges like these. Smoke from the fire inside a teepee came out through a hole at the top where you see the poles. Nomads such as the Sioux and Crow lived in teepees. These roomy cone-shaped tents were made of buffalo hides. A teepee could be taken down or put up in minutes. It was warm in winter and cool in summer. Women owned the teepees and all the household goods inside them. Plains clothes. Men usually owned their clothes and weapons and not much more. A man's greatest possession was his buffalo hide shield. The shield was painted with images from the man's dream. On special days, great warriors wore feathered bonnets too. Each feather stood for a brave deed the man had done in war. The bonnets these men are wearing show that they are respected warriors. Sometimes a person's head was painted red where the hair was parted. On most days, both men and women of the plains wore leather leggings and a shirt or dress. In summer, men usually wore only a breechcloth. Both men and women wore their hair down to their shoulders, loose or in braids. The hair was parted down the middle. Chiefs and warriors. Any boy could grow up to be a chief, but he had to learn the title. He had to prove his courage in war and his wisdom when he spoke. He had to win respect by helping those in need. Only a brave, wise, and generous man could be chief. A chief was a brave man who gave wise advice. A tribe could have more than one chief. These Comanche and Arapaho warriors are having a war council. The bravest men belonged to special warrior clubs. These groups had colorful names. The Cheyenne, for example, had the Dog Soldiers. The warrior clubs acted as police for their tribes. They kept order on hunt, too. Many wore special outfits and followed their own strict rules.
War and trade. The Plains tribes made war with one another, but it was not what Europeans called war. They did not try to conquer their enemies. They had no armies. Plains Indians made war to get horses and to prove personal courage. The greatest honor came from counting cope. This meant touching an enemy's body during battle without hurting him. After a battle, Plains warriors met to talk about their deeds. Lying in such a meeting was considered very shameful. Trade was constant, too, even though many of these tribes spoke different languages. People of different tribes could talk to each other using sign language. Almost everyone knew this special language, and it was a language. People could tell stories and have long conversations in the sign language of the Plains people. Black Elk, a Lakota medicine man, shows how to say "my heart" in sign language. Spirits and medicine bundles. Religious ideas were important in everyday life. According to these beliefs, everything has a living spirit. The sun, for example, is a mighty living power. Each of the 4 compass directions has a spirit. The earth is the mother of all spirits, and above all is Wakan Tanka, the Great Spirit. This man is from the Omaha tribe. Many people made medicine bundles to keep themselves connected to spirits. A medicine bundle is a small bag with several secret items, such as feathers or bones. Each item has a special meaning or importance to its owner. The owner believes that each item is something that will please his or her special spirits. This is what a typical medicine bag looks like. Tribal gatherings. About once a year, a whole tribe would gather in one place. There, hundreds or even thousands of people would perform a group ceremony. This ceremony was meant to keep the tribe united and connected to the spirit world. The Cheyenne and others called their ceremony the sun dance. At a sun dance, secret religious ceremonies take place in a round teepee like the one you see here. The sun dance is still performed by Plains Indians. At a sun dance, people form a circle around a sacred object. They move their feet slowly for 2 to 4 days, never stopping to eat, drink, or sleep. Through this hardship, they believe, they earn the protection of powerful spirits. The Plains Wars. The nomadic buffalo hunters' way of life lasted about 100 years. By the 1830s, white settlers were moving west. These people took land from the Native Americans. They brought diseases to the plains. Then white hunters started killing millions of buffalo. By the middle 1870s, they had wiped out the herds the Indians needed. Railroad companies hired hunters to kill buffalo so the herds would not slow down the trains. The Plains tribes struggled to save their way of life. The Oglala Sioux fought for the lands that are now North and South Dakota. In 1868, the U.S. government signed a treaty with the Sioux chief Red Cloud. The treaty promised the Dakota lands to the Sioux as one great Sioux reservation. Red Cloud led a fight to claim the northern plains for the Sioux people. Victory and defeat. In 1874, however, gold was found in the Black Hills of South Dakota. So Lieutenant Colonel George Custer was sent to remove the Indians. But Cheyenne, Sioux, and Arapaho warriors united against him. In 1876, Native American warriors led by Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and others destroyed Custer's forces at the Battle of Little Bighorn. This picture is part of a painted hide that shows the Battle of Little Bighorn. It was painted by Red Horse, a Sioux chief. This victory only brought more U.S. soldiers to the plains. In 1889, the Great Sioux Reservation was split into 6 smaller ones. That year, Sitting Bull was murdered near his home on the Standing Rock Reservation. In December, U.S. soldiers killed a band of unarmed Sioux at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. The Plains Indians never went to war again. The Plains Indians were forced to give up the lands they had once roamed. The 20th century. Today, the Plains Indians have reservations in many states, including Oklahoma, the Dakotas, and Montana. Modern Indians, however, honor their ancestors who once roamed the plains. Indians of many tribes have adopted their dances, clothes, and other customs. You can see this at any powwow. A huge statue of the Oglala Sioux Chief Crazy Horse is being carved out of a mountain in South Dakota. This model shows what the sculpture will look like. The real statue is in the background. A powwow is a fair that brings together Indians of many tribes. The custom has spread across the nation. At powwows, Indian families gather to have fun, but also to explore what they share. In the movement to build one united Native American community, Plains Indians are among the leaders. The Kiowa Indians are performing a slow war dance at a powwow to celebrate Native American culture. Famous Plains Indians. N. Scott Momaday, Kiowa, 1934 to present, is a poet, writer, and painter. His first novel, House of Dawn, won the Pulitzer Prize, the most important writing prize in America. His second book is an autobiography, The Way to Rainy Mountain. It is often taught in schools. Maria Tallchief, Osage, 1925 to present, danced for the New York City Ballet. She starred in 30 ballets, including her most famous role as the Firebird. Newsweek called her the finest American-born ballet dancer of the 20th century. Black Elk, Lakota, 1863 to 1950, was a famous healer, medicine man, and prophet. In 1930, he told his visions to the poet John Neihardt. The result was Black Elk Speaks, one of the most important books of Native American spiritual thought ever published.